4-year-old Patty Patton was playing outside her family home in Industry Township. Jack Pumphrey, a neighbor, helped her to her feet after she had fallen down. Then she disappeared out of sight. Join us as we talk to family members and law enforcement officials in an attempt to piece together what happened that fateful day. We will look at what is known and not known. We will search out new clues in hopes of finding new evidence to solve a mystery that has been plaguing this community for more than 5 decades. I'm LeVar McBride, and this is Cold Case Beaver County.
911, what is your emergency?
You got 3 people of interest still, say, I do. 3 people of interest, then you got that blank face.
Now that's why nobody really knows if she is dead or alive.
He was set free and he was set free to go kill.
We've never gotten that one break. We've never gotten that one break. You know, we will though.
Everybody was in shock. Nobody was letting their kids outside. There was a killer on the loose, and there still is.
March 21st, 1956 was a warm and sunny spring day in Industry Township. 4-year-old Patty Patton goes outside to play around 10 a.m. 4 hours later, she was found dead just 1,000 feet from her home. From the time she left home, the only person to admit seeing her alive was neighbor 14-year-old Jack Pumphrey. He was home from school cutting wood for the family home. Just after Patty left, Jack came to Patty's home and told her mother he saw her fall down outside the house and claimed he had helped her up. An hour later, with no sign of Patty, Jack came back to her home with a question for her mother, Bernice. Her mother became concerned and the two began looking for Patty. With the news of her disappearance, the search party grew. Her father, Thomas, came home to join in. At 2:10 p.m., neighbor and family friend Milo Adams found Patty's body under a tree on a flat part of the hill, about a half a mile from her home. State police were called to the scene, but with the aftermath of the search party, the crime scene was left contaminated.
By the time the state police arrived on scene, firemen had been there. They had neighbors. They had other people trying to find her, friends, family. So the area was pretty trampled down. Once state police got there, there was footprints everywhere. There, weeds were trampled. I don't know if the body had been moved, but it could have been.
There was suspects in this case, from the neighbor boy to other kids that may have been in school, may have not been in school. All came out of the investigation. Those individuals were interviewed, polygraphs were administered. Pretty much the case kind of went standstill.
They all came back negative, which means that they didn't fail the polygraph. Not necessarily did they pass it, but they didn't fail it.
A careful review of the evidence and autopsy reports from the coroner detail a chilling and suspicious view of what happened to Patty with no obvious motive.
There was speculation due to the injuries that she had. She had a bruise on her mandible, on her jaw area. She had redness, red marks on her nose. Some indications that she may have been smothered or asphyxiated. She had bile in her saliva, which can be caused from violent convulsions, which is also caused by asphyxiation. You don't get those from falling down. You get cuts and scrapes, bruises, but you don't get marks on your nose where you could have been pinched. A mark on your jaw where somebody could have had their hand across your mouth and their thumb right on your jaw.
Investigators also believe that the terrain and distance from the house was too far and difficult for a 4-year-old to walk alone.
They speculated that the fence that she had gone over, the possibility that she couldn't have gotten over that fence by herself, or gotten through the area by herself, climbed the hill to get up to where the fence was, that she was too little as a young girl to get up that hill to climb over the fence, which also leads to believe there was somebody else involved. There was other information.
The investigation suffered another blow when the coroner and the DA refused to agree on how the injuries and cause of death occurred.
The district attorney did, at that time, Dick Stewart, he did not believe it was a homicide. He wanted more proof. It hadn't been called a homicide at that point. The coroner's office disagreed with him, and Dr. Todd felt strongly that it was a homicide.
They didn't want to list it as a homicide without having a suspect. which kind of causes a problem. This day and age, it probably would have been listed as a homicide. But back then, with no suspect, okay, we're just going to go with it's a death.
But Patty's family believes the district attorney's hesitation was politically motivated.
Yeah, it was an election year. And none of the officials in Beaver County wanted a homicide on their backs during an election year. People like my parents and stuff like that, you didn't have connections. You didn't know, you know, and yeah, we were a poor family, and it was like, it didn't matter. Unless you were somebody or you had money, I can guarantee you they would have done everything possible, and they would have worked on that case night and day.
After nearly 60 years, most of the physical evidence is missing. Patty's clothes were lost when the coroner passed away in 2004. Despite ongoing interest from investigators, Patty's case has gone unsolved for nearly 58 years. They continue to search for missing links. As recently as 2013, in an interview with Jack Pumphrey, the 14-year-old boy who was the last person to admit seeing Patty alive.
I don't want to make it sound like he was lying to us. It was very hard to interview him, as he is in poor health. He's in a wheelchair. He's on oxygen. But it's a strange thing when people don't want to make eye contact with you while you're talking to them. Something like being the last time you're the person that saw someone alive for the last time, it's kind of something that would stick in your mind. He didn't remember.
I'm sure Mr. Pumphrey was afraid we were going to come up and hassle him, but that wasn't the intent. We just didn't want there to be one nugget of information that he had thought about and never got around to calling about. This case has haunted him forever. You know, he was a 14-year-old boy who was pretty much the last person that we know of that saw her alive.
One thing about human nature is people can keep secrets for so long, and it's sort of like a maple tree. We try tapping it. And the syrup in this case is the truth of what happened. And that's what our goal is. You know, if you look at Patty's tombstone, it says always in our heart. Well, I can assure the family and the other people that are from that time period, and Patty herself, even though she's gone, she's not only in our heart, she's on our desk.